In the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. To start things off this morning, we'll first recognize outgoing board member Commissioner Renee Flowers, who recently left the Board of Directors. She completed her second tour of duty on PSTA, this time for 3 years after previously serving while on St. Petersburg City Council from 1999 to 2002. Brad, would you like to say a few words about Commissioner Flowers?
Good morning, everybody. So, yes, I don't know how you did not get your fancy lifetime board member bus pass when you were on St. Pete City Council, but you will get that today. I just want to thank Commissioner Flowers for her service this past time that I got a chance to work with her. I think she did a lot of really what I would describe as creative things. She's an incredibly creative problem solver. If you recall, she, I think, joined the PSTA sort of during the pandemic when we were spaced and distanced. And she came to me and expressed a thought that maybe the area of St. Petersburg where she lives maybe doesn't often highlight or acknowledge the environmental benefits of public transportation and how we're trying to be resilient in our community. And so she hosted us. We had a Earth Day event at the Carter G. Woodson Center early on in her time on PSTA. That was great, and we highlighted resiliency things. I remember when after there was massive inflation and we had a union contract that was kind of approved before the inflation, and this room was totally jam-packed with all of our employees demanding a pay increase, she sort of led us to a solution, a very quick solution, where we were able to compensate our employees fairly. And then the third thing, as you might just recall this past summer, she sort of, she made the motion and she came up with the solution to work with Pinellas County Sheriff Galtieri and come up with the implementation of the Sunrunner fares. And so I think that has worked out pretty well. So I think that is a great attribute of Commissioner Flowers. And most of all, I think her time as a service on PSTA has been to always be looking out. She's been such an advocate for the employees of PSTA. And whether it's myself, I've been very honored to work with her, or the union employees, or the administrative employees. She's been a great supporter of the work that we do here. And so with that, I would like her to come up, and the chair, Driscoll, if you could join me, and we take a picture and recognize Commissioner Flowers.
I don't want to belabor the point because I know that you all have important business, but so many know my story, but I grew up in Jordan Park, and in the early years, we didn't have a car. So public transportation was it, and I've shared with you where the bus stops were and the routes and how it helped those African-American women who were the help in Northeast St. Pete, which was my grandmother. She was one of them, and how employees got out to the beaches, and even my mom taking the bus for public transportation, and then being able later to have a car for our family to help not only our family but others. And so that's why the event was so important to me at the Carter G. Woodson, because many people in our community, if they're not able to come to the meetings, they don't know what all PSTA is doing to make sure that they're able to access different parts of the county so that they can enjoy some of the things that occur and utilize those efforts. It has been a pleasure serving. please look, continue to contact me. I'm happy to utilize the contacts I have in DC and Tallahassee and anywhere else when it comes to public transportation. I appreciate the time that I have had here. I'm hopeful that maybe one day I will be able to return. But until such time, I will continue to advocate for public transportation because it is the connection that we will need in order to continue to attract large corporations to our community, because one of the things they want to know is, how will my people get to work? And if we are committed to looking at reducing our carbon footprint, then public transportation is the way to do it with electric buses. So thank you all so very much. It's been a pleasure, Gina, serving with you all and with each one of you up here. I've made some wonderful friends. Thank you so much, Dan Saraki, for inviting me to Oldsmar and coming to hang out, and Josh and Deb, who I grew up with, Vince. I'm still riding by your house. So anyway, thank you all so much, and I look forward to all of the great things that you'll continue to do. And again, if you need my help or support, just reach out, and I'm happy to be there for you. Thank you. Thank you, Si.
Sure.
Oh, we got
two over there.
All right. Thank you again, Commissioner Flowers, for your service. Next, we have presentations. For this one, we have one presentation today regarding PSTA's partnership with, for March 8th through 10th, 2024, for the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Pete. At our PSTA budget workshop, which I was very disappointed to not be able to attend last month, one of the key takeaways there was to have PSTA create partnerships within the community. We're going to highlight one of those new partnerships with the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg with a video introduced by our interim marketing communications director, Amanda Baird. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much. As Chair Driscoll just mentioned, I'm Amanda Baird from the Communications and Marketing team, and I'm very excited to share with you a bit of information about a very exciting partnership we have coming up between PSTA and the Firestone Grand Prix. As you are aware, the Firestone Grand Prix is one of the largest events in Pinellas County, expected to draw over 100,000 attendees to downtown St. Petersburg next week. And PSTA is an official partner of the event. Attendees are encouraged to leave the driving to the pros and ride PSTA services rather than drive their private vehicles. If attendees, ticket holders use the Flamingo Fares app and submit a promo code, they can receive a small discount on their fare, and all other fare payment methods will charge standard fares. What I'm here to show you today is part of the promotion of that partnership. I'm not sure if you saw the red carpet when you came in, because this is a world premiere. As I mentioned, we are encouraging Grand Prix attendees to leave the driving to the pros. The video you're about to see features two of those professionals. First, you'll see Nikita Johnson, a Gulfport native and hometown hero who will be racing in the events next week. Fun fact about Nikita Johnson, he is currently in the 9th grade. He has been racing and bringing home trophies since he was 8 years old, but currently only has his learner's permit to drive private vehicles on the road. Additionally, you'll see PSTA's very own Terrell Berry, who has been on the PSTA team since 2015 and is the current reigning Florida Triple Crown Bus Rodeo champion. So without further ado, here is our video. happy to take any questions if there are any.
Any questions, comments?
Thank you.
Yeah, I loved it.
Thank you.
I hope it's going onto the social media channels so we
Yes.
can share.
You will see it on all PSTA social media channels this afternoon. We're also going to have a little bit of a watch party with Terrell right before it goes live and film his reaction to it. So, yeah, so
Excellent.
very exciting. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Great work. All right, next we'll go to public comment. This is for public comment on consent agenda items or, excuse me, items not on the agenda. We have, I have one card here. If you have not filled out a green card and you would like to speak, if you could grab one of those and turn it in so that we can make sure that you're heard. Our one card this morning is from Sharon Calvert. And I just wanted to clarify, it looked like you had marked for a public comment and not for one of the particular agenda items.
It doesn't matter, I'll just do public comment.
Okay,
I'm Sharon Calvert, and I live in Tierra Verde. And there is one of the agenda items, and it's regarding the the premium transit on alternate 19. And I'm very, very concerned, as I've said before, about the 34th Street South lane repurposing. And I just want to point out, in the past, because of the issues of what has been caused by PSTA with the repurposing of lanes, I urge that you take a lot of caution. But I want to point out that there was a letter to Secretary David Gwynn of FDOT on April 5th, 2002, basically thanking him for including the BAT lanes in the resurfacing project. And it also states that, this is to advance submitting a capital investment grant to the FTA. So this is intended to be another Sunrunner BRT corridor. In addition, you have a letter dated 5/10/23 from the Skyway Marina District and opposing the repurposing of the lanes. And this is going to go back to the history of this project. In April of 2019, there was one public meeting about a proposal. Nothing in concrete, just a proposal. I attended that meeting, and there was probably maybe 60 people there. And it was a meeting where people couldn't raise their hand and talk. It was a meeting where you went around and looked at charts, and they were telling the public, well, this is what we think we're going to do. That was the only public meeting. If you go to the next couple pages, this is in the 34th Street South Lane Elimination Study dated March 2020. Shows the public involvement. There isn't any public involvement. It's all talking to electeds and staff members and bureaucrats. And perhaps at the time in 2019, the Skyway Marina District may have supported it. They don't anymore, and the reason they don't, and I've spoken to them, by the way, they represent businesses. They're kind of like their own little chamber who's advocating for business district there. They don't represent the residents of that corridor. But when they saw the thousands of new apartments that are being built there, most of them luxury with huge parking garages, including what's going to happen with the Ceridian development with thousands more, they said, wait a minute, you can't do that because you know what? It's going to cause a problem. There's just going to be more congestion. You're going to take a functioning road and make it dysfunctional and more hazardous. So I think the problem is, as you move forward, is just one of trust and integrity. Because the Sunrunner started out as a $16.5 million, pretty short
if you could wrap.
bus lane. It turned bloated into a $45 million
Thank you.
thing
Your 3
that people
minutes.
oppose. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Did we have any other requests? All right, we'll close. Thank you. Sure.
Hi, Barbara Hazelden, St. Petersburg. Thank you for allowing me to get up and speak. Was running a little late this morning, but I was very concerned about the fact that it appears that the alternate 19 task work order that you all, by majority, voted to approve last month, which was sprinkled throughout with the words BRT. There's a map on here showing the BRT stops on alternate 19. It talks about Phase 4 being a bus rapid transit. And I know Josh Shulman pushed back on this at the planning committee meeting and said, why don't you call it something else? But Whit got up last month, Mr. Blanton, and gave this presentation. And as you recall, I got up afterwards and said, wait a minute, he didn't mention BRT. He didn't go through the 2 pages that clearly state that this task order was the first step in what could ultimately and would ultimately become another bus rapid transit on alternate 19, another one of our highly, highly necessary functioning north-south corridors in Pinellas County. And amazingly, you guys approved, of course, the $250,000 monopoly move, first step. Now we see that there's a revised version of this presentation last month. Now, I don't know how many of you take the time and I'm not meaning to insult you, I'm just saying I know we're all busy, to actually go through these presentations. I printed off this presentation, PowerPoint, which is eerily similar to the one that was given last month, and yet BRT has been scrubbed from this document. You, based on this document, approved $250,000 study. This document has been scrubbed and basically is a cover-up for the original BRT language in this, which we know the public is going to be very upset about a BRT coming up alternate 19. I think you should rescind the $250,000 study and start over from Mr. Blanton, however he wants to proceed, because this is misrepresentation. As a licensed insurance agent for 100 years, in the insurance industry, this is called twisting. And you can lose your license for twisting, which is basically misrepresentation. So I'd like to see this $250,000 rescinded. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to our consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any board member wishes to pull? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved. Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the motion and second.
For the consent agenda? I move.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Can we please open the voting system? Commissioners, please enter your votes. We have 3 missing today. So, okay, that was everyone.
Yeah, that's
Just wanted to make sure. All right, thank you. The motion passes. Next is our committee updates. First, we have a legislative update from Tallahassee by Ron Pierce with RSA, who will give us the latest on the PSA bill and any other state activities. After that, we'll receive a track update from Mark O'Hara, the local coordinating board update by Commissioner Reed, and then followed by my report from Forward Pinellas. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. Thanks for allowing me to have me join virtually this morning from Tallahassee. Just kind of everybody give a quick update. So we're on day 51, middle of week 8. Sessions beginning to come in for a landing. Budget conference started on Monday. So the biggest thing that's happening in Tallahassee right now is the House and Senate are in the middle of budget conference. We expect from a budget standpoint, subcommittee should wrap up their work today or tomorrow. that have all the unfinished budget items be bumped to the big chairs and to the Senate President Speaker probably again later today or tomorrow. Let me give you a quick update on really 4 or 5 issues that are moving in Tallahassee. Not only the local bill, but there are a couple of other bills that are moving that potentially could have an impact on PSTA. Number one is obviously the local bill. The PSTA local bill is scheduled to be heard by the full House on Friday, which we fully expected. It's made it through 3 committees in the House, be heard by the full House on Friday, probably pass the House sometime next week. Just to remind everybody the way the local bill process works. Once the bill kind of travels through the committee process in the House, it then goes over to the Senate, and then in the Senate, all the local bills are kind of collected and put onto a local bill calendar, which is a consent calendar at that point to be heard by the full Senate. Typically, that happens sometime the middle of week 9. So my guess is that would be next Wednesday or Thursday, most likely. Let me remind everybody. I know that Senator Rouson continues to have concerns with the bill. And if he has concerns when the bill comes over, one of the options that he would have is to pull that bill off that agenda. If it's pulled off the agenda, that means basically the bill would not be heard by the Senate. So that's probably what we expect to happen at this point. Again, I know Senator Rouson has been very vocal about his concerns of the bill. Bill really hasn't changed since the last time I talked to you all a month ago. So the bill is pretty much as we discussed over the last month. And again, will be heard by the full House on Friday, probably passed by the full House early next week. And then at that point, Senator Rouson would pull it, if he's going to, which we expect he would pull it from the local bill calendar in the Senate sometime next week. There are a couple of other bills that are moving that I'll point out to you. Number one, there's a large transportation package that's moving that has a lot of different issues that are in that were either going to be discussed as a part of the local bill by Representative Cheney. Some of the issues I'm about to mention to you are either currently in the local bill or were issues that were originally discussed and then taken out kind of through the bill process in the local bill. Number one, this is Senate Bill 1226 and House Bill 1301. Which is sponsored, by the way, the Senate bill sponsored by Representative DeSigley, so obviously right there in our backyard. Number one, and this was mentioned earlier by one of the speakers, there's language in there relating to traffic lanes repurposing. There's some guidelines with regards to a traffic study, notification of citizens, public meetings. That's included actually in both bills at this point. Language is pretty much identical. There's language relating to vehicle wraps, tinting, and marketing and advertising by transit organizations. There was language that was included that came out as a part of a draft earlier this week that would have actually prohibited advertising any type of bus wraps. That has been removed from the bill at this point. We think where the language is probably going to land, and right now it's similar in the House and Senate bills. It's not identical, but both of them have the same outcome, which is we cannot use any type of government funding or state funds for the bus wraps. Now, it doesn't prevent us from using private funding. So as a part, and the state knows that, by the way, the bill sponsors know that. I think what the concern is, they just don't want public dollars spent on the bus wrapping. What they would like to try to see done is make sure that's a part of any type of advertising agreement we have with any vendors that are doing that. So that's included. There's some language relating to administrative cost in the bill. That's not targeted at PSTA. That's actually targeted another transit organization in Northeast Florida. The way that language has now been drafted, I think we're going to be fine with that. But there was a lot of work's gone into kind of getting us to the point where we don't have any direct concerns with that. So those bills, by the way. There's another transportation bill that's moving as well, relating to no more than 20% of all funds from the Transportation Trust Fund can be spent on transit. I think the concern there is, and by the way, today, if you look at the way that's calculated, not even close to 20% of those dollars are being used on transit, but I think the concern's about the future. That's included in another bill that's moving. My guess is all the transportation bills will end up in one large transportation package as we get closer to the finish line. For those of you that have been kind of following, issues in Tallahassee for a while, we fully expect, many of these transportation issues will not be decided until day 59 or day 60 in Tallahassee, which is just kind of the norm in Tallahassee. So let me mention actually two final issues. There's a sovereign immunity bill that's moving in Tallahassee. It's called Suits Against Government. One of the things they do, and it is moving, by the way, the House bill, well, right now it's still stuck in its last committee of reference. The Senate bill has magically moved 2 committees in the last week. It moved last week. It moved out of its second committee of reference, and then it moved out of its third committee of reference on Monday. It changes the limits on tort claims. Today it's 200,000. It changes it from 200,000 to 300,000 for one claim. Then for multiple claims, it would change it from 400,000 to 500,000. So I know Debbie and her team, we've been trying to keep her updated on that. That bill is moving. We expect at this point, the Senate will probably take it up, pass it over to the House, and the House would probably take up the Senate bill. If there's a part of a deal, the bill's moving all of a sudden, so it tells us from a policy standpoint, this is an issue that either the House or the Senate cares about. I think one thing that'll be interesting over the next couple of days is House Bill 1, the big social media package. That's the #1 priority of the House. That was given to the governor last Friday. Many people in Tallahassee expect the governor to veto that bill. If he vetoes that bill, I think there could be an opportunity. That has to happen by Friday, by the way. If he's going to veto it or take action, it has to happen by Friday. There's other policy issues that could have impacts on. This is one of them, just because if this is a priority of the House or Senate, depending on what they do with House Bill 1, we do believe, I'm not sure there'd be a veto override, but I think there may be some another bill that's introduced kind of to try to address some of the governor's concerns as a part of House Bill 1 that would be introduced over the next week to try to get done prior to day 60, which is next Friday. Let me mention one final issue, then I'll take a couple of breaths and take a couple of be happy to answer a couple of questions. In the House tax package, there's currently language in there that I know a lot of you would have concern with. Number one, tourist development tax dollars, requiring that all tourist development tax dollars would have to go to referendum every 6 years. And there's also there's language in there that would require any discretionary sales tax would also have to go to, that would have to be passed by the voters, would have to go out to vote every 10 years by referendum. We fully expect that language to not end up in the final tax package, but I have received a lot of phone calls from folks in the Tampa Bay area with major concerns about that. Again, anything relating to referendums, relating to the tourist development tax dollars or discretionary sales tax, we do not expect those would make it to the finish line. Let me also remind you, there was some language there's a special districts bill that is moving into Tallahassee. Doesn't really have any indirect impact on us, but there was some language early on that would require if we have the ability to increase ad valorem taxes, it would require that to go back out to voters by referendum. That is not included in the final that bill that's moving. So I just want to make sure that you all know that gave us some, there was some concern raised by some board members and by Brad. That language is not included in the special districts bill that is moving at this point. So, Madam Chair, I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, we're on day 51. Sessions is scheduled to end next Friday. I think at this point, I think we are on track to hopefully finish on time. So happy to answer any questions about this or any other issues that may be moving in Tallahassee.
All right, thank you. Questions? No? Oh, Brad, did you?
You get my button there.
Yeah.
Thank you. If there's no questions, I just want to express my gratitude to Ron for being up there. What he just gave you is like, I know that there's been a lot of movement, like on an hourly basis, as some of you probably know even better than me. And Ron has been fantastic in keeping me informed, working with the legislators and talking with them about what we're doing and issues how it would affect people in Pinellas County. And I'm really grateful for that. I know, we're starting I know Ron's in the thick of it. He said like, what, 9 days left or something? But looking after the session to try to meet with the legislators back here in Pinellas. I know we told them that when we were up there in Tallahassee, and I think that's the good strategy. We do want to keep working with these legislators to talk to them about if they have issues with things that are going on, or just updating on what's going on at PSTA. So thank you very much, Ron.
No, you're welcome, Brad. My pleasure. And as we kind of share with the legislative committee, and I'll share with the board as well, we fully expect many of the concerns that Representative Cheney has raised will not go away. So obviously, I would strongly recommend that after session we sit down with her and other members of the delegation and other leaders. There's some other statewide folks that are involved in some of the other transit agencies, but really use the off season to meet with them, educate them, but more importantly, sit down and look at some compromise on some of the issues and concerns that they may have moving forward. So no, but our pleasure, and hopefully a lot of these issues, where they started and where they are, they don't have near the impact that they once had on PSTA. But again, I fully expect some of the issues to come back over the next couple of years in Tallahassee.
All right. Thank you so much, Ron, for all that you do. We appreciate your advocacy, your assistance with helping us to understand what's happening and helping us understand what we can do about it. So your guidance is much appreciated.
Very good. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, our next update is from the Transit Riders Advisory Committee. And do we have Mark O'Hara with us this morning? Oh, yes, and in person.
In person, I know.
Good morning.
I have to go up to the office later, so I figured I'd stop in and say hello. Good morning, Chair Driscoll and Mr. Miller and board members. TRAC met on Tuesday, February 20th via Zoom. I'm happy to report that TRAC Vice Chairwoman Cheryl Blocko and myself were reelected to the chair and vice chair for 2024. We're very thankful to our TRAC colleagues for their support and confidence. We also heard a presentation from Ron Pierce, just as you just did, describing this year's legislative process and what's going on in Tallahassee. We were requested to get a list of the Pinellas delegation that we could reach out to help them lobby for pro-transit policies. As we also do at the beginning of 2024, we also went over our 2024 initiatives, which will include pro-transit lobbying of our elected officials, both here in Pinellas County and in Tallahassee. We also plan on working with one another to help develop partnerships with new organizations here in Pinellas that would also increase ridership. Our next meeting will be on March 19th at 4 o'clock. You are always welcome to join via Zoom and hear from the transit riders. We also encourage our elected officials to join if possible. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Brad, did you have any questions or comments?
No, I'm just appreciative of Mark's leadership on the committee.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being willing to serve and continue to serve in a leadership role.
Yes, no problem. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Next is the report on the local coordinating board from Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. Congratulations, by the way, Mark. Yeah, the local coordinating board, LCB, met last week on February 20th in downtown Clearwater. The first annual public meeting was held with a comprehensive overview of the Transportation Disadvantage Program here in Pinellas County. And a huge thank you to Ross Silvers. He did amazing and continues to do amazing. Staff from the Homeless Empowerment Program gave an informative presentation about their services with emphasis on the transportation they provide to unhoused individuals. If you've never checked out that program, really check them out. They're amazing. The LCB agreed to consider an action item on the May LCB agenda to vote to approve HEP becoming one of the nonprofit providers PSTA provides state transportation disadvantage funding for each year. Currently, PSTA provides funding to PARC, UPark, and the Neighborly Care Network, and HEP would be added to these three important services if approved next year. Robert Fiegel with Ford Pinellas presented the results of the annual Community Transportation Coordinating Evaluation on PSTA, noting that all results were positive and that each recommendation made the prior year had been implemented. Staff from the Career Source Pinellas gave a presentation about their services and how they may be impacted by a July 1st merger with Hillsborough County's Career Source Tampa Bay. The 2024 federal poverty guidelines were adopted prior to the meeting's adjournment. The next LCB meeting will take place on May 21st at 9:15 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, we'll move on to Forward Pinellas. The Forward Pinellas Board met last on February 14th, 2024. The board received a presentation on a series of targets for each of the safety-related performance measures. The Forward Pinellas staff evaluated the trends for each target and adjusted the targets as appropriate for 2024. Of the 5 performance measures, only one, which was the average annual pedestrian and bike fatalities and serious injuries, met its target. As such, staff proposed lowering this target for 2024 and keeping the others the same. The board approved the proposed targets. Next, the board received a presentation on the county's multimodal transportation impact fee ordinance, which Forward Pinellas and the Pinellas County Housing and Community Development have been working together to update. The ordinance is used to ensure that new development bears a proportionate share of the cost of capital expenditures necessary to meet mobility needs. The multi-phase update process recently started with listening sessions involving both internal county departments and external partners, including local jurisdictions. Next, in response to Senate Bill 102, known as the Live Local Act, being signed into law in March 2023, the Forward Pinellas staff developed a Live Local dashboard to track and easily compare Live Local projects countywide. The staff presented or provided a demonstration of the dashboard, and I can report that my legislative aide and I both played with it after the meeting, and it is a really cool interactive tool. So I look forward to seeing that and working with that more as more information is added. The next regular Forward Pinellas board meeting will be held on March 13th, 2024. And I'm happy to answer any questions. No? All right, thank you. And that does it for our committee updates for today. We'll move on to our action items. First, item 7A, the Van Pool Program 1-month extension. Al Burns, our Director of Procurement, is back with another extension to the Commute with Enterprise contract for the Regional Van Pool Program. Good morning, Al.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Al Burns, and to the Finance Committee, yes, your highly motivated Director of Procurement. At the Finance Committee, we had a very robust conversation about the Commute with Enterprise contract, and I gave a little bit of background on what the program is all about and how it is so important to our community. What we came away with was that I would bring to 1 or 2 options to the full Board of Directors this morning. Option 1 would be a $3.6 million contract for, a 2-year, $3.6 million contract, or option B, to request an extension to continue negotiations. Madam Chair, I want to thank Alan Zimmett and BMO Law Firm and their team. We have been working in tandem daily on trying to get this to complete these negotiations. I met with Enterprise as late as 4 o'clock yesterday, and BMO, specifically Jacina from BMO, we talked, I think, about 6:30, 7 o'clock last night in regard to this contract. We're almost there. We are almost there. Today in your packet, there's an action item that's titled Van Pool Services. to approve a 1-month exigency purchase order with Enterprise Lease of Florida LLC, doing business as Commute with Enterprise, for a total purchase order amount not to exceed $150,000. To the Finance Committee members, I want to thank you for your time last Wednesday and the suggestions that you gave me or gave us, PSTA, in negotiations and future efforts that we do when it comes to the van pool services. So if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. I did it very abbreviated because I know there's other things on the agenda this morning. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions? All right, Brad, would you like to add anything?
Thank
No?
you, Al.
All right.
for working on this.
Thank you for that update and your continued work to get to a more long-term agreement
Yeah.
with
Thank you,
this.
Madam Chair.
I'm confident in your ability, and I'm confident in this program and that it will be successful.
I concur with that.
Don't give up, Al.
I'm not.
All right, so then, seeing that there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Second?
Oh, I'm sorry. So sorry. Did we have any public comment on this item? All right. Thank you. We'll close public comment. We do have a motion and a second. That's all right, seeing that there is, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner
Just for
Eggers.
clarification, that is 1-month extension. That's
Yes,
not
sir.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, seeing that there's no request for further discussion, could we open the voting system, please? Commissioners, please enter your votes. And with all present commissioners voting, the motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members.
Thank you. Next, we have our information items. There's one item in this section today, and that is being given by Heather Sobish, our Director of Planning, who will provide information regarding all of the plans, many that are not led by PSTA, but all of the plans for future rapid transit corridors. Heather.
Thank you,
morning.
Chair Driscoll. Good morning. So yeah, you've heard, we've had some questions and comments about kind of how premium transit services come to be. So this is just an overview and summary of how we conduct planning that results in a premium transit service. So I have Sunrunner here as an example. Of course, that's our full bus rapid transit project. This project actually started with some studies conducted by the city back in 2003. There was an east-west transit study. Along the way, PSTA, Ford Pinellas have done various studies to develop that project. So you'll see here, this is just kind of the long history of the Sunrunner, and the point being that many decisions were made along the way. There were resolutions by the city, there were decisions by PSTA, by Federal Transit Administration, and by DOT. And then throughout this project, at each of the stages, we did conduct public outreach, and whether that was PSTA leading it or Ford Pinellas, that was done. So just a summary of some other premium transit projects that are kind of in the works. You'll see here a map on the right. This is Ford Pinellas's corridor investment strategy plan. And so you'll see pretty much the major corridors in Pinellas County that are major roadway corridors are also our highest ridership routes run along these corridors. And so we're looking at how do we prioritize kind of where we would invest in premium transit that would support redevelopment in these corridors also. None of these, kind of what you see as lines on the map here, indicate that there's necessarily red bat lanes being proposed. These are just corridors we're studying, again, for premium transit service. And then over on the left, you'll see a number of studies that have been conducted by multiple agencies. So we have TBART has conducted some studies, DOT does resurfacing projects, and they coordinate with the local jurisdiction in Fort Pinellas on those. and then PSTA has conducted some. So we have the US 19 Premium Transit, excuse me. T-BARTA conducted a study looking at express bus service running from Pasco County into the Gateway area. Fort Pinellas has also conducted some studies looking at both north and south express bus service getting into the Gateway area. The Skyway Marina District, in their plan, did include premium transit service. And then we've already heard from public comment, FDOT is planning to convert about 5 miles of outside lanes into BAT lanes as part of their resurfacing project. And FDOT, as they do resurfacing jobs all around the county, does coordinate with Fort Pinellas and whatever local jurisdiction the roadway runs through to see if there's any safety projects, sidewalk projects, maybe transit that could be incorporated as part of their resurfacing project. For I-275, we all know there's a lot of construction going on I-275, and there has been studies. T-BARTA did a regional rapid transit study looking at connecting St. Petersburg to Pasco using the I-275 corridor. In that project, we would just run our express buses in the express lanes, so it wouldn't be any kind of just transit lane. Advantage Alt 19, that was a study that was conducted by Fort Pinellas looking at redevelopment opportunities in the alternate 19 corridor, and that did include a complementary premium transit route. And then PSTA is conducting an alternatives analysis that just kicked off of what the service plan would be for that. And then over the years, there's been a lot of studies of trying to connect Clearwater Beach to the Tampa International Airport. At one point, DOT was looking at bus lanes on the Memorial Causeway Bridge. That was eliminated because of a lack of local support. So we still seek funding to provide some kind of express bus service between the beach and the airport. So we would look at premium transit projects, and as I've kind of been describing, that could include bus rapid transit like the Sunrunner, but it also could include express bus, it could include limited stop service, all with the goal of reducing travel time for riders, improving the customer experience, and supporting redevelopment, which many of our corridors are kind of in need of or looking forward to. The list here is just some of the features that could be part of what we're calling a premium transit service. Like I said, Sunrunner is kind of the full BRT, but you could also have an express bus. You could have limited stop service with increased frequency, increased span of service, and then you could implement some capital improvements like transit signal priority. There's a picture here of Abhishek. He's actually presenting about the Sunrunner, but the emphasis here is just that we do conduct public outreach, as does Fort Pinellas, all along the way with these planning projects. And I also wanted to note that, I know we're talking about the red BAT lane on 34th Street South, but PSTA can run its premium transit services. We can run limited stop service with or without a BAT lane. So, that's not really the PSTA decision. That's a DOT, Fort Pinellas, a local jurisdiction decision. And then talking about Alt 19, we presented on this last month. So all we really have funding for at this point is to implement a limited stop overlay service with limited stops and increased frequency in the peak hours. We are looking at a phased approach. So over the long term, looking at more frequency, more span, perhaps some transit signal priority, perhaps some branded service, but that would be over a long period of time. Right now, all we're doing is conducting an alternatives analysis, looking at what would be the kind of minimum segment of operating a premium transit service to improve the travel time. So in summary, we had, of course, our Sunrunner that opened in 2022. We're looking at this potential 34th Street express service when the construction's done in 2025. Looking at express service in the express lanes on the interstate project once that opens, likely in 2029, and then we're conducting this study of alternate 19. And with that, I will turn it back to the chair for any questions.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Any questions? Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Heather, on the investment corridor slide, there's a yellow line from downtown St. Pete over to Tampa that says in design. What is that?
That is the express lane project that we would run our express bus service in. So we have, well, right now, our express bus from St. Pete to Tampa uses the Gandy Bridge, but we would look to take that over the Howard Franklin and use the express lanes.
And where does that depart from now? Which route is that? Is that?
That is the 100X that goes from downtown St. Pete to downtown Tampa.
And I think those X routes we need to take a really hard look at because they just don't perform well. I mean, they're consistently two of the lowest performing routes. And, you know, I had mentioned at one of our previous meetings that I think we have a good opportunity with 15 million visitors that come to Pinellas County each year to look at repurposing those resources and starting the Clearwater Beach to TIA route. I think we may actually have an opportunity there to create a service that actually people ride, and we actually might have a fighting chance at making some impact on congestion here. So I really question whether throwing more money and resources at those X routes really makes any sense at this point. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Eggers.
Did I mess things up there? Okay, we're good. Yeah, I would echo that comment from Commissioner Scott. When he brought that up last month, I certainly share that feeling about getting a real value-added service that actually might make some money and reduce congestion, and a need that exists. So I would share that. It's interesting that, and the part I want to talk about has been brought up by a couple of the folks this morning that spoke about our doing public hearings and what that means for what type of changes that we're doing. Public hearings are extremely important, not only for the issue at hand, but also for gaining interest, involvement, input from the residents. I mean, if you're going to ever hope to have a transit system, getting people actually engaged and energized about things, I think, is a positive thing. So I'm not sure where that discussion begins, maybe in our committees, maybe in conjunction with the MPO. But when there's a work to be done that talks about anything related to certain levels of changes, I think we need to have a policy that requires a certain number of public meetings. And I'll look at Whit in the audience, but we'll talk about it at MPO. But, you know, the number of public meetings that we had on 34th Street, question mark. But I know the number of meetings is in excess of probably 10, probably more than that, on the Drew Street corridor. The city did a number of public meetings. MPO's had a couple of public meetings. And that's what you have to have. And that one is driven primarily and almost exclusively by the number of accidents and safety issues along Drew Street. It's not about transit, it's not about any of that. So it's really about public safety and the number of accidents and that we've had on that road. So I'm not quite sure where we have that. Maybe we talk about it in our committees. Maybe the MPO can come here one morning and talk about their suggestions about how we can ramp up that public engagement. I just think it's really important for a whole lot of reasons. And I continue hearing that from folks. So just food for thought. The fact that the bat lane's not needed by public transportation on 34th Street's interesting. So maybe that's not necessary, a lane elimination. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Madam. And I just want to, I have a question on what Commissioner Scott brought up with the enhancement or proposed enhancement, and that's with Route 100X, is that correct? So now, it now skips over on Gandy and goes to Britton Plaza and continues on to Marion. So would that leg be eliminated, the Britton Plaza leg, or?
Yeah.
What do we have proposed?
Yeah, I mean, so right now, we were proposing to, yes, to move it over to the Howard Franklin Bridge. Ideally, in like our vision plan, we have service on both bridges, but we just don't have the funding right now to be able to operate both of those services. So we would look to use the express lanes so we could get that travel time savings for most of our riders are going to downtown.
So, yeah, there's not much demand for Britton Plaza, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take a closer look at those express services, the 100 and 300. I think both. It makes sense to offer a service, but what that looks like may need to be updated. So I would like to have a fuller conversation about that. I think there might be a better way to do it that would increase ridership, maybe save some money, and create, you know, a frequency and convenience that might be missing right now. So I would like to see us take a closer look at that.
Certainly, yeah, we can do a deep dive into the express routes.
And maybe share what some alternatives might be, whether they're better or worse. I think it would be helpful to see what changes we could make and let us discuss that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a final comment on that. That might be, the X's might be a better served by Vanpool at this point, or perhaps even just a reservation-based service. I mean, the history of those X's goes back a long time, probably close to 20 years. And back then, when they started, there was a dedicated fleet, I think it was 10 MCI motor coaches at that point. And I've ridden that service a few times through the years, and we run these buses back and forth across the Howard Franklin all day long with largely nobody in them. I mean, anytime I've ridden it, it was me and maybe one or two other people in it. So there's certainly better options of doing that. And just from an environmental standpoint, just operating vehicles, regardless of how they're powered back and forth with nobody in them, doesn't really make a lot of sense. So.
All right, Commissioner Cox.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just one addition here with the Skyway Marina District Plan. Have we included MCAT at all? We do have a stop, right at the end of 34th Street and 54th Avenue. And have we had any conversations with MCAT or considered any conversations with MCAT?
You mean about specifically serving the Skyway Marina District?
Yeah.
No, I have not personally. I know that MCAT runs a couple trips a day that also serves Grand Central and goes to Bay Pines, and I think the primary reason for that service was to serve Bay Pines.
Right.
But we can certainly reach out to them and.
Yeah, because there are people that inquire about that and actually write it too.
I can reach out to
I don't
them.
believe we have an MOU with them, do we?
Well, the latest I know on that is that Manatee asked if they could have a bay at Grand Central when their vehicle pulls in, when their bus pulls into Grand Central, rather than stopping on the street.
Right.
So we made them a spot.
Okay.
And we scheduled a spot for them to come in there. But then they go over to the VA
Right.
from there. But yeah, we can talk to them about that service too.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brad.
Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, so I just wanted to follow up with the comment that I was making about in public engagement. Oftentimes in cities, when you do land use changes, you need a couple of hearings. When we were doing some work on Nebraska Avenue, and we had a concept public meeting, which just kind of got everybody together to understand what the elements were. Then there was they were talking about doing a 60% design public meeting, and I thought, well, that's just too far gone. We're already way down so we backed it up to 30% design. And there was another public meeting to kind of say where we're actually, having done some of that design, where we are. And I think it was helpful to the residents to see with a little more clarity, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak. And I really think it made a difference. And it also allows people to think, to themselves, I can make a difference by getting involved. So I'm not, again, I think there's historical work that's been done that's created that. I'm not sure that's happened in transportation or transit, that we have a certain minimum level of not only during the time frame of doing it, but what level of public engagement there will be, because it's geographic at different areas, it's different times during the process. With the very thing that Commissioner Scott's bringing up today, I think it's a great idea. I think that we should look into that, and we should introduce that to the public at some point, that's a service that this agency is going to start to look into, not necessarily get behind yet, but look into so that we can perhaps develop it further and then try to gain momentum with it. So just trying to rehash some of the thinking that I had done and maybe bring a little more clarity to it. But I do think it's extremely important that we do that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, this is the chatty side of the dice today. But everyone is engaged, of course, and I for one, really appreciate the discussion. Well, if we have no other requests for comment or questions, thank you so much for that update. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right, next is our reports and correspondence, along with future meeting subjects. Brad, would you like to give us an update on these reports that are in our packet?
I would. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and we'll put together some analysis of the express routes that go over to Hillsborough for you on that. And look at possibly, talk to FDOT and see if we could maybe, what changes we can make to those, and where they go. In your packet are all the ridership and other performance metrics for the month of December 2023. Ridership was down by 6% from the year prior, but this drop can be entirely explained by the service reductions approved by the board taking effect in December, one fewer weekday in 2023 than 2022, and of course the institution of fares on the Sunrunner. Speaking of the Sunrunner fares, in your packet is a set of graphs and charts providing some analysis of the impacts the fares have had on the Sunrunner. Each month we're now going to be providing a similar analysis about some aspect of our services first to the Finance Committee. Maybe the express routes might be the next topic. The biggest takeaway in this Sunrunner data indicates that the drop in ridership since we instituted the fares has been of, well, what I'll call choice riders, or riders that are using the service for purposes other than to get to work. As you can see from the graphs, the biggest drops have been on the weekends, and at stations that may be like the beach, which don't indicate, well, while other stations have not seen bigger drops that are maybe more work trips. We'll be monitoring this to see if spring break, the peak, brings back more of the tourist and discretionary riders. We are seeing signs of that success so far, as we carried over 3,500 folks on the Sunrunner to the Royal Rumble wrestling event at Tropicana Field. And then this past weekend, we saw over 4,000 riders on the Sunrunner going to the big local Topia event. Other spring break services have begun. The Jolly Trolley's parking shuttle to the Blue Jays spring training games have begun successfully. And we just started our annual Clearwater spring break with the trolleys, taking folks from the old City Hall parking lot in Clearwater for one more year, I guess, before that goes under construction, to the beach. This is a successful partnership sponsored by the City of Clearwater. Thank you, Commissioner Albritton. Thank you to those who attended the budget workshop earlier this month. I thought that was a productive first discussion, And we are going to work to schedule another budget workshop with you in either April or May to get more details on the 2025 PSA budget. I appreciate the interest in doing more analysis. We are actually hiring, so if you go to the PSA website and you want to do transit ridership analysis for a living, we're taking applications. But yeah, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brad, the local Topia, can you, I was looking at the website and it said the Sunrunner was free on that day. What was the partnership agreement? Can you just talk to that we had with that group?
So we worked out an arrangement with the local Topia to pay for to get a free booth and promotion of the Sunrunner in exchange for the, the only route that was free was the Sunrunner on that day. It was sort of a trade agreement. That's similar to an agreement we're trying to work out right now with the Tampa Bay Rays, where they provide marketing and other promotional services to PSTA in exchange for paying, probably not every game maybe, I'm not sure, but some riding just to go to the games, those kinds of deals.
So what was the cost of a booth down there? Any idea?
We can get that.
So we had, what, about 4,000 rides that day?
Yeah.
So at a 225, that's about $9,000 in fare revenue. Just curious how that squared with, what the.
We can put together an analysis of the cost, the benefit that we got versus the.
Just want to make sure we're seeing ridership bumps on that, because,
Yes.
$9,000 is $9,000. Thanks.
Commissioner Cox, you had your, okay, we'll go to you and then to Commissioner Fig Sanders.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Brad. Couple of things. We still continue to do very well with our access service. With multi-loads are way up. Efficiency is doing well. Meaning more people on one vehicle. And that's good, and that's profitable for us. And I read something, Brad, that Treasure Island was interested in perhaps engaging with PSTA on Central Avenue and then going, I guess it was northbound up to Johns Pass. Could you enlighten us where we are on that?
Yeah, I guess last fall, we were approached by Treasure Island that they had heard that we were discontinuing the trolley service to St. Pete Beach, where it had gone, and they asked, well, could we just extend it to Treasure Island instead? So we put some basic information together on that, and then they talked about wanting it to go to Johns Pass. And then, yeah, I saw that article too, that I guess they had a discussion more recently, and they decided not for now, I guess. Yeah.
They mentioned something about perhaps the freebie on that also, in that same article is what I saw.
Yeah, it sounded like they didn't want to go forward with the freebie. I think they had talked to, maybe they talked to the St. Beach on that, I think. It sounded from the article that they didn't want to do either.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay.
The issue with the trolley is, of course, now the trolley goes just to Grand Central.
Right.
So in order to get it to Treasure Island, not only would they have to pay for the little service in Treasure Island, but they would have to pay for it to get all the way from Grand Central to Treasure Island.
There you go.
So it'd be pretty steep. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Fig Sanders.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to follow up on the comment regarding the free rides to Locotopia. I know that we are, and it would be the perfect world if everything was equated to dollars and cents. And I do appreciate the fact that we provided those 4,000 rides to Locotopia, because the bigger picture of it is looking at the economic burst that it gave to a lot of those vendors that were there participating and selling their wares in Locotopia, that we took a very active role in getting those dollars to those vendors so that they can purchase from those vendors. And a lot of those vendors were not locally from St. Petersburg. We had vendors from all over that benefited from the visitors coming and participating in Locotopia. So when we look at us providing free rides, they weren't really free. They provided economic gain and boost to a lot of those vendors. And I just really want us to keep in mind that it's not just always about dollars and cents. It is about keeping our economy moving, making sure events that boost spending dollars are supported. And again, I want to thank PSTA for wanting to provide those rides, because if you went down there, it was packed. I don't know how many attended Locotopia. She was having an estimate of almost 50,000. She might not have been too far from it. So it really did a fantastic job with supporting our small business owners, with helping, those wares as far as spending those dollars locally. And whatever way that we could assist in doing that, again, it may not have received $9,000 in advertising, but we spent 4 times that in the value of supporting those small businesses. So I just wanted to interject that comment with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry to go this long without saying something during a meeting. So I do want to be careful about following up on Commissioner Fitzpatrick's point and Commissioner Scott's, that saying that asking the question, did we receive $9,000 worth of value in what we got in exchange with Locotopia? Brad, you said that there was it was 4,000 rides?
I don't have the exact number.
Okay. So in my mind, I think it is good to make sure that we are getting value, but I think it's dangerous to say that all of our rides on those days would have been full fare rides.
They
right?
would not.
So how many of those rides did we have versus how many of those rides would we've had on any other day, any other comparative day? And then also understanding that people with passes ride free or are not paying any incremental difference. Veterans now ride free. Students ride free. These are all programs that we already have. If they're staying at some of our CPAS hotels, they would potentially also ride free. So we can't just say, okay, there were this many rides, they would have been all full fare, so it's $9,000. And I think that's a very dangerous comparative. And I just wanted to go on record for saying that, because I think the comparative number is lower. I think we should be doing that. I just want to make sure that if we're going to do analysis, that we do complete analysis, not partial analysis where we're just using kind of top line information. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Eggers.
Well, in the spirit of the discussion of dollars and cents, I just really was hoping that, and maybe you have all the information already, that we've been collecting fares on the Sunrunner for how long now?
Since October 1.
Okay, so we have a quarter's worth of data?
Correct.
Okay, at least quarter plus, sounds like. So maybe we could just take a look at that and kind of do some analysis on that versus the year before when there was no fare, and see how we did, kind of dive into it and see who's using it, who's using the ride, and who's paying for it, and how many people are paying for it, and what kind of money that we are making. We certainly have no shortage of doing services for folks, and that's great, but I think we also sometimes need to focus back on the money-making abilities that this organization can have. And I go back again to the beach, to the airport service, and this service, which if you go back and look at all the studies that were done on the Sunrunner, I don't know how long it was supposed to be free, but I'm guessing it was longer than it wasn't as long as what we did do, but I don't know that. So just, if we could just look at how that's doing and try to understand a little bit who's riding and a little bit about the change. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to make a note here. My wife and I were on the Sunrunner a couple of times on Locotopia Day. I took her bowling at Pasadena, and I don't bowl, but she did very well. And then we played pinball, which we had a lot of fun. As we were coming back, a fight ensued on the bus. I think a couple of fellows were liquored up, and unfortunately, the one bigger man sucker punched this guy, and I mean, he whacked him. You could hear him hit him in his nose. It sounded like his nose cracked and.
Sure wasn't WrestleMania?
No, this wasn't WrestleMania. But
Yeah, really.
but anyway, it was a mess. There was a lot of blood, but I have to commend the driver, number one, for stopping and contacting all the authorities, which they showed up very quickly. The Pasadena fire crew, EMS, so on and so forth, and these things that happen, but we were all back on another bus within 10 minutes and on our way, So I think the PSTA, and there was a supervisor on duty very quickly, too.
Good.
So do we know any results of that investigation yet or not? It's too early?
I don't know. We can find out.
Yeah,
what
I'm
happened
sure,
with that.
because there's
Yeah.
cameras everywhere.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I just want to commend the crew, the PSTA crew, and Pasadena for their prompt response.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that
Quite
colorful
well.
description of the
Oh, you're right.
incident and the events, and I'm glad everything turned out great. And, oh, look, it's time to go to this side. Commissioner Reed.
Thank you very much. Is it on? Is it on? And everybody's comments and so forth with the money and the rides and so forth. I think the one thing that everybody's trying to get to and what we need to watch is that it's a business. PSTA is a business. And I have several small businesses, and I appreciate different things, and sometimes, though, it is a business. And I think that when we're looking at bartering stuff out, and when we're looking at, we have to look at what's the best for PSTA, our bus drivers, and our routes in other parts of the area and so forth, that money that we might be bartering, if they're making 50,000 people are coming in, then we look at charging them, or we look at, and we talked about this in our workshop, was how can we make more money? We're really in that mode of making money, not giving things away. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from, is that it is a business, and we have to figure out how to make it a successful business, and we have to make sure that we have money for our bus drivers and our employees, and that we offer services and not keep cutting services. So I would like to know when we're gonna barter things out, that it's an approval from everybody that we're bartering, and that where we're going with different things, like with the raise, that we all talk about it before we just do it, is my opinion. Because then we might have some other ideas, because the workshop was that we would get sponsors for those things and not barter out advertising or so forth, that we would actually get money. So my opinion, but I just think we need to make sure that we're doing it like a business.
Thank you. I haven't spoken yet, so I'm going to just say a couple things before we go on to those who have already spoken. So with community partnerships and in-kind agreements and things like that, I would love for us to have more discussion on it and maybe have some input. I do wonder if there can be challenges with the timing of that because of the frequency of our meetings and the way that those types of negotiations and agreements might go. And sometimes they're not made that far in advance. So I would have some concerns over requiring this board to approve all of our sponsorship agreements and in-kind agreements and things like that. But I would like to find some way to at least discuss it and give us the opportunity to provide input.
Yeah.
So
Sort of put together
my
a
2 cents
comprehensive
on that. With Localtopia, I'm going to do a little bit of numbers and then beyond the numbers. Localtopia's estimated attendance for that one day was approximately 60,000 people. Unbelievable. That is more than all of PSTA's social media followers on 5 different platforms combined. It is a lot more. 60,000 attendees, all getting to downtown St. Petersburg at the same time that day. And so I am grateful that there was this opportunity to, hey, hop on, and you don't have to add to the traffic. You can, you don't have to worry about finding a parking place. People who are not going to Localtopia, like the 3 people that weren't going that day, were trying to get around downtown. It is an incredible success, but logistically, it is hard to manage with the traffic and parking. And so anything that can be done to help with that, and this particular event really highlights our locally independently owned businesses. And it is just an incredible opportunity for them to pull in extra revenue that day. And I know that all of us can say that we really support our small business owners and our independent business owners in the city. So I was proud that PSTA partnered with Localtopia to provide that and help make it more of a success. If the value of that trade was $9,000, if everyone had paid full fare, that breaks down to just a few cents per person that was spent. In exchange, what we got was the exposure to more people than all of our social media channels combined on any given day, when you look at those followers. So I did want to provide a little bit of perspective on that, because the participation by PSTA in that, by being on site and by being an operator to help with the traffic issues and the parking issues, really does go beyond money. But when you break it down this way, the money actually makes sense too. With that, I'll go to Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I started with 1 comment. I think I have 4 now.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. I apologize. So I agree. And we'll never know how many people at Localtopia drove and then saw the Sunrunner and the people getting off the buses and going, that's how I'm going to do that next time, right? So you don't know how that translates down the road, but it is an opportunity that is well worth it. I did have to push back a little bit to Commissioner Reed. We are not a business. We are a service, right? Commissioner Scott owns a transit business, right? He can decide, they're not paying me enough, I'm not going to ride that bus. I'm not going to send that bus from here to there with those people. We don't have that option. We need to make sure that our routes are effective and that we're fiscally sustainable, but we're not a business. We can't just turn people away because they don't have the ability to pay for that service. So I think we need to be careful about how we refer to that. My original question actually went back to something Commissioner Egger said, which was about who's riding, and I think that's a great point. Brad, when our fare counters on the Sunrunner, right, they're looking to verify fares, do they, if someone has paid a fare, or if they have a pass, or if they're a Pinellas County student, or if they're a veteran, do they mark down which category do they fall in, or are they just confirming that some form of payment has been made? Or that they're there, you know?
On a daily basis, they just confirm that everyone on the bus has paid. But we are asking them now to sort of regularly do a survey and mark down on their forms, number of U-passes, number of veterans, et cetera.
Okay, yeah, any tools that we can have to help get more information about the nature of the folks that are riding and how they're paying, I think would be tremendously helpful in trying to determine next steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. And just one note on the PSTA participation in Localtopia, besides the no fare aspect of it, but we did have a booth set up, and it was a small booth, quaint, and it had a spinning wheel that you could get bling, you could get sunglasses, or you could get any number of token prizes, and it was very aptly manned by Juan, and it was actually popular. And also, I noticed the setup of Localtopia this time. It seemed to be more organized. It was larger because it went further north on Third and actually further east on Second Avenue, Third Street North. And they had the food trucks mostly on Second. And it seemed well organized, and we enjoyed going. The weather was wonderful too. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Reed.
Go ahead.
Oh, Commissioner LaValla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hopefully our next marketing campaign on the Sunrunner is not, don't get sucker punched on the Sunrunner. But to Mr. Schulman's point, we do turn people away sometimes. We had a discussion recently about service reductions and route reductions. So I think when it's possible to save money, we should certainly look at that. And this festival that y'all have been talking about may be a very worthwhile endeavor. But to that point, Brad, is it possible to get a list of the current in-kind trade and barter trades that
Yeah.
PSTA has currently? All right, thank you.
I'll send it out to everybody.
Thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. And when I said as far as a business, we do have a business backside. We have a budget. We account for all the money that we do. We do turn people away. If they can't afford it, they can't get on the bus unless they fall into a program. So we do turn people away. And we are a service provider, absolutely. But we have to be smart, like a business, with the people's money that we are taking and using. So on the backside, we have a full accounting department that runs like a business. We have a full budget that we run like a business. So that's what I meant too, as a business. I would love to give it away for free and have grants for everything. I think that a lot of times we up here get into this thing back and forth of who's doing what and who wants what, and we're attacking each other. We're really not. We all want the same thing, and we want to provide the best bus service and the bus transit in the state of Florida. That's the end goal for everybody. It's not a bickering and barter and this and back and forth. It's making sure that we don't cut buses. When we're adding bus stops, when we're adding everything and we're the top and we are just everywhere, everything, I think then we can safely say we can give away whatever we want. But when we cut rides to people, when we look at, I want our bus drivers to be the top paid bus drivers in the state. So that's what I'm saying. It's not that I'm attacking anybody that I think we should do this or that, but I just think sometimes, I agree, sometimes we have to negotiate some things quickly because we didn't have a meeting or what. But the big teams and the big, the cities are here all the time. We can talk with them way ahead of time. The Rays, all of those type of people. We can talk ahead of time and come up with something. So, and I agree, we need to be out there in marketing. It's not that, I'm not, saying that, but we do run it, the backside like a business. And our service is we've won awards. But I think at the end of the day, we just really need to look at what we give away and how we can market it better. And I'm saying make more, the people who are making money, use our service, offer it for free, but make these people pay. The Rays, the people who are making money, have them sponsor. Get some more sponsorships. Get some more of that kind of stuff that provides free service for people who can't afford it. So, for lack of better words. So.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Schulman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that context. I just wanted to be careful about using the terminology to run it like a business, because for a lot of folks, that means profitability. And that means looking at cutting routes or getting rid of things that aren't profitable, but that still provide a good service. So, so I appreciate the clarity that you brought to that. I would say probably the middle ground is a nonprofit business. You know, our goal here is not to necessarily earn money. We want to be fiscally sustainable. We want to try to increase routes. We want to try to bring more riders in. But it is not to necessarily turn a profit. It is to provide a high-quality service and moving people around the county. And so I appreciate that clarity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I appreciate that too. One thing that I really enjoy about this particular board is that we do all look closely at how the spending works and how we have opportunities for revenue. And so it is kind of a hybrid where you approach it in a way that is responsible, much like a business would, and yet keeping in mind that we have a service that we provide. I remember how difficult it was for us to face all of the cuts in service as we were approaching the approval of the budget for this year, and looking at the ridership by route that's in our backup material. I see some of the routes that are lower than the year before, just looking at December. And my goal is to get to the finish line with the budget without having to cut anything. That means looking at it as we go along. That's why I like the idea of talking about the two X's. What can we do now instead of getting down to the wire with the budget and saying, well, we've got to cut this, this, and this? What can we adjust now that's going to make all the numbers work at the end of the day? I'm excited to see that Route 32 was one of the routes that we were considering cutting last year. We chose not to. And now it's actually, well, the December over December, the December year over year was up, it's up 7% now. So it's a good thing that we didn't cut that, because something changed, something was improved, and now it's actually operating in a way that looks like an improvement, at least for 1 month. I know that's just 1 month. But, you know, there are others here that are lower for that month. I would rather see this route by route, like over a quarter or something like that, because we know that some of this is seasonal, and some of it, there have been businesses that open, that close, that can impact the ridership and why people need to use a certain bus route. So I like looking at this, and if I can see a bigger picture of this by route, then that helps us to look at where we need to either adjust now or face cutting when we get to September. I know you guys are always, I know that your team is always looking at how to create more efficiencies and things like that, but this is where I think several people here today have indicated an interest in looking at things a little more closely and giving some input, both with these routes and with these partnerships. Now, regarding the partnerships, I do want to point out the Rays it's actually a great example, because I know you're still talking with them about what we might do with them for the season. The Rays home opener is March 28th. It's the day after our next meeting. I don't think we can wait, have Brad wait until the day before opening day to get a deal approved by us to execute with the Rays and sign with the Rays the day before opening day. Because I have a feeling that the Rays will want to have the Sunrunner incorporated somehow into opening day, since it's a high attendance day. He's got to, Brad has to be able to work out those agreements now, not the day before it's needed. So there are some challenges with that, and I just wanted to point that out as an example.
To your comments and to the board's comments, perhaps what we can do, we collect so much data, and our goal is always to turn the data, which is kind of useless, into information that is helpful. And that takes some effort and time to go into it. What we've tried to do, what we started recently, is giving a deep dive into some aspect. Like this month, we did the Sunrunner ridership data, and we presented that to the Finance Committee. Perhaps what I can arrange is just to have that same presentation be made to the board. Until you tell me to stop. We can provide that data. My thought was that there is so much information, like, and that we would kind of do a deep dive each month, maybe on something different. Obviously, try to gather the questions. There are always going to be comments on things. You know, the interesting thing to our comment that what I was trying to explain in the Sunrunner data was we do obviously our whole organization tries to run like a business, but the ridership and doesn't act like a normal business. We instituted fares on the Sunrunner, and ridership went down. Who left? The more wealthy people left. The discretionary people that have cars. The people that are still riding the bus are the workers. The workers. That's obviously what is going on with the Sunrunner. It's the discretionary riders that that's not like a normal. I mean, I only minored in economics, but that when you increase the price, more wealthy people with more means would normally pay that in a business. But in our case, we increased the price. The folks that need the service kept riding, and the more discretionary people, even though they can clearly afford it, they decided. I don't know what they decided. We're trying to find out what they decided, but they are riding less. That's just one anecdote, but I mean, we're going to look at Flamingo fares and how that's going. Now that we've gone to the contactless payment, we've got the express routes. Yeah, I think we have a wealth of information that we can provide to you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment on route evaluation and performance. We should always be evaluating that. You know, we should never just start a route and just forget it and never evaluate it. I think that we should actually have a P&L by route, and not for the purpose of understanding profit and loss, but understanding route effectiveness and performance.
Yeah.
And if we know what a route costs to operate versus what the ridership is, I think we can make better decisions. So I think that's something that we should do, and I don't think that, you know, our goal should be to never cancel a route. You know, we have technology now that we can help displace riders if we have a route that just purely isn't performing, and we can move those resources elsewhere to benefit more people. But also comment on the Sunrunner, when we implemented fares, the homeless quit riding too, which was a good thing. So we got rid of the riffraff, which was causing a lot of problems. Okay, so that was also where some of that ridership went. But thinking ahead for the budget as well, we also have to evaluate staffing positions as well. And, you know, this agency over the last decade has expanded quite significantly in terms of staff. And on the website, we have, it looks like 5 positions that are being advertised. And I don't know how long these positions have been open or not, but if they've been open for a significant period of time, I really think we should look, do we really need them? There's one position in particular, Chief Planning and Community Affairs Officers, for a salary range of $142,000 to $177,000. That when I read the job description, sounds a lot like what you do, Brad. So I really question if this position is really needed or not. But I think we should start looking at, you know, not laying people off, but just looking at what normal attrition does to the organization. And this is going to be another tough budget year. So anywhere that we can start identifying those savings and changes now, whether that be in route adjustment, whether that be in staffing adjustments, I think everything just needs to be on the table. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Latvala.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be very careful with how I say it, since two of my commission colleagues are with us today. And I guess if I say something I shouldn't say, somebody will throw something at me. But you mentioned the raise and a possible agreement that Brad may forge with them with the Sunrunner. And as everyone knows, they will have a pretty substantial monetary ask in both the city and the county. And having said that, I will have a problem if PSTA and Brad just gives them free rides on the Sunrunner for opening day or for however many days of the year for those games, knowing that they may be getting a pretty big check from the taxpayers in the city and the county. And I don't think just getting advertising in return from the raise would be good enough. I think if they get those rides, they can wrap a bus, if that's going to be permitted by the legislature, and we can have a couple raise buses. And they could also, give us a check, give PSTA a check to subsidize those rides. And maybe we use those as a way for both advertising for the raise and advertising for us. But I would have a real issue if we just give baseball fans who have the means and the means to get to games just free rides, for raise games.
Thank you. Great point. Commissioner Cox?
Yes, it's me again, thank you. These are a couple of things, Brad, for you. I got a couple of phone calls last week regarding the go-karts that we've discontinued. And their concerns were they had, 5 or 6 of the single-day go-karts, and we ended reimbursing for those on January 15th, as I understand it. And apparently they missed the target date on that, and I don't know how many other people have that. It was too difficult to just exchange these for, the new tap cards that we have, or extend that, or how do we determine that date of January 15th?
I can research how that all came about. I know that we announced the discontinuation of the go-karts a year in advance, and we did have opportunities for folks all throughout the fall for months to turn in their go-karts and get changed to a Flamingo card. I was not involved in setting the deadline.
Right.
But I think that deadline was set a long time ago. But I can find out more.
Yeah, I mean, if we could, because it's also difficult to turn it in. I mean, does it have to go to one of our service centers? Would it have to come here, or can they be mailed in and then mailed back? I mean, how are we going about?
We can find that out.
Yeah, giving people their money back, and let's make it simple, because we're very limited on the way that we distribute these go-karts. And are we getting any more vendors? Oh, we just have AMSCOT right now, am I correct, for?
No, we have AMSCOT and CVS and,
Publix? Just Publix?
no, I mean, a couple of individual stores.
Okay, so they.
Mainly AMSCOT and CVS.
A person that wants to purchase can go to other locations. If we have this, is it on our website too?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'll check it out.
I think there's a map.
Okay, I'll check it out. And one other thing I want to mention is that I heard that Lyft has an enhanced service that's more similar to U-Serve, meaning that they have drivers that are trained to go door to door.
I saw that, yes, that they've announced that.
Okay, and can we incorporate that in our MOD or to assist, or you tell me?
We're gonna try to find out. I mean, my understanding is that they haven't launched that in the Tampa Bay area yet. They're kind of rolling it out across the country, but that's on our list to talk to them about.
Okay, I think it's a great idea, Brad.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Fig Sanders.
Thank you so much. I just really wanted to make a quick comment and an apology. I am a staunch supporter of the care and concern for all of our constituents of the city of St. Petersburg, and the terminology of our homeless community as riffraff, for the record, is not a sentiment of Commissioner Deborah Fig Sanders. And so for that, I do apologize that we have a certain sector of our community that is thought about in that manner, because all homeless people are not there by want, is by circumstance beyond their control, so that does not make them the riffraff of our community. And for that, I do want to make that apology. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Eggers.
Well, yeah, I'll just make it real quick. Totally agree with Commissioner Reed's initial comments about the perspective of thinking about this as a business. We do enough of the other about service, and I think business is always a good perspective. And Commissioner Latvala, I totally agree with you on the Sunrunner. I think it's something that if there's real value added there, then the Rays would pitch in. I've often thought that we in the Rays, this board and the Rays ought to be talking about a Rays Express bus that has different connecting points. Because I'd pay $10 to get to a game from Countryside and then a ride home. I mean, that's value to me. So the whole idea, back to Brad's comments about, we raised it $2 and, only the wealthy dropped off. And there's this whole elasticity of demand analysis that goes on, and it's very, very telling. If you really believe that, then there's absolutely zero value to the Sunrunner. And I disagree. I think there is value to the Sunrunner. And I think that if there's a reason, whether it's comfort, whether it's parking, having to deal with all of that, and the cost of parking, and then there's real value to a service. And I would argue that the Sunrunner probably does have some value, and if it doesn't, then that speaks volumes. I think it does, and we can look at that. So value added is something that we need to be thinking about, whether it's whatever demographic you're in. There's a value added for everybody to some degree and some level, and as a business, we ought to be taking advantage of that with the folks, I'm not sure what the term was used, priority rider, premier riders, whatever that is. We ought to be taking advantage of that when we can. And again, thank you, Commissioner Reed, for your comments.
Thank you. The term is discretionary riders.
that what
And
it is,
discretionary, yeah. And that just gave me an idea. I really liked the Sunrunner survey that was done last year. I think it was maybe midway through the first year of operation, that told us, and this was while it was free, which stops were most popular. Who's writing it? Is it students? Is it employees? Where are they going? Are they going to work, school, entertainment, what? And then if not that method of transportation, what else? How else would they get to where they're going?
Right.
So if not for the Sunrunner, what other method would they use? Would it be their own car? Would it be another bus? Would it be, an Uber, whatever? I would love to see what that looks like now. That could put to rest any questions as to who's writing it, but it was also very valuable information then. I don't see it less valuable now that we have paid, payment system in place. So just something to think about. You don't have to respond right now. I know you get a lot of things thrown at you from left field, so. And I do also understand, Brad, that in your discussions with the Rays, that you know what you all are talking about, and you may not be able to share everything right here as far as what type of agreement you might be looking at. So I understand that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're saying, free everything for everybody. So,
I did not say that, no.
Right,
I mean,
but
to the point made.
I also know you've heard the comments from some board members on what they would like to see this.
Yes.
In this,
I too
for this
like real
agreement.
cash.
So
Real cash.
I wanted to just get that all out before we go to Commissioner Gao. Hi.
Hey, thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, my goodness, I've got a lot to say. I'll try and be brief, and most of you know where my comments will probably go. But first, a question to Brad. Brad, in the United States, are there any profitable public transportation agencies? Is there somebody that we can look to aspire?
I'm not aware of one, no.
No, okay.
No.
All right, and I just want to at least acknowledge to all the board members that any one of us can sit on any board, anywhere, whether that's PSTA, whether that's the Boy Scouts, whether that's Apple, Yahoo, and find things to criticize, find things to comment on. And I don't know that that's our role. I just wanted to put that out there. Profit and loss on all of our routes, I think that is a smart thing to do, but the problem is it will inevitably resort to profit loss. And that's exactly where the conversation will go. As soon as we find a route that isn't profitable, the conversation is going to be, should we cut it or not? And most of the time, it's going to cut it, because that's just our nature in a capitalist society. That's where we're going to go. Treat it like a business. I know those comments are well-intended, and I would disagree with my colleague, Mr. Schulman, that PST isn't a business, right? I think a business is either you sell a product or provide a service, and we provide a service. The challenge is when we say things like run it like a business, it immediately implies we currently are not running it like a business. And I think we can look at any business anywhere and again criticize issues within their profit loss statements, their balance sheets. Certainly run it like a business. Is that any one of the businesses that are filing for bankruptcy today alone? And so using the term run it like a business, while well-intended, does provide concerns. Thank you, Commissioner Eggers. You talked about value added, and that's the part that I like to see, is that we don't talk about the value added from public transit to the county and what it means. We so happily spend billions of dollars on roads that nobody questions. Nobody questions. It's just, if we're a society, that's just the cost of it. And the idea, if we can reduce some of those billions by providing a public transit system, then I think that's the better focus. The 100X and the 300X. We currently have, 15 million tourists coming to our county. 90% of them are coming by car. And they're coming by car, and that's even if they fly into TIA and they're renting. But they're coming by cars because we offer zero alternative. They have to rent a car. If you're 16 years old and have a job trying to get to school, you have to have a car. Our society is entirely built around having to have a car. And we want a nickel and dime about $2.50, where according to AAA, it costs between $10,000 and $14,000 every year to own a car. And so we don't provide any assistance. And so I think it's a wonderful opportunity for a public transit agency to say, how can I help my community? The idea that if we offer a free service, somehow that means that anybody who rides the bus is cheating somebody. And I know that that word wasn't mentioned, but the idea is they're getting something for free. Instead of that's an opportunity cost that they can stay an extra night in a hotel. They can not rent a car. They can go to our museums and our small businesses and support that. I know that before Sunrunner even opened, there was already economic redevelopment happening along the corridor. In Dunedin, we're talking about a complete street on our Skinner. We haven't even broken ground on that yet. We're already seeing economic value, that opportunity, that redevelopment. Those are jobs, those are salaries. That's important to communities. And so inevitable when you start to talk about that framework of it's a business and profit and loss and we need to make money, I think that's a disservice to the value that we're adding to the county and to the residents where we live. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Really? Well, thank you.
And Canadians rock. I'm sorry. Go Blue Jays.
Thank you, and I was waiting for the Canada mention, so we can check that box now. Thank you very, very much for your thoughtful comments and for everyone's very smart discussion on this. I look forward to hearing more. And looks like I'm about to. Commissioner Cox, we are going to go to other business next, which
will be
we
very
kind of
brief.
already went there,
This-
but
I'm
just
not
wanted
going
to-
where I was, all right?
We'll go to other business. How's that? And then you've got, it's wide open.
Okay, here it is. I want to remind all of us that we have a huge month coming up because we have the Firestone Grand Prix, which is well ridden. We have spring break for a month, essentially. And the beaches will be packed with the PSTA buses will be packed, and just wanting to remind everyone to be prepared. Thank you. That's all, Madam Chair.
And it's trolleys, not buses, right? Are we doing trolleys or buses?
It's mostly 99% trolleys, Jolly Trolley,
Yeah.
Sun Coast Beach Trolley.
Excellent. Commissioner Albritton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a tentative date on my calendar for March the 4th at 10 a.m. for a signing ceremony for the closing of the lot at the Intermodal Center that I'd like to see stay there. City of Clearwater is just waiting for a letter that if you could send to Dave Margalis, if it hasn't been done yet, this to say that you guys will make sure that the damage on the roof to the bus center will be repaired at some point.
That's, okay. That's news to me. The last I heard from David was he was gonna talk to the city manager and get back to me.
Well, I guess I'm glad I'm letting you know, because I don't want to see that go. If we can do that, he's just looking for a letter saying, I know you're doing a lease back on that property to Maine, but he just wants to have a letter saying that, that's going to be taken care of. If you can get that over to him, we can keep that date.
Okay.
I know Stephanie's got a thumbs up over there.
Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. Anyone else with other business? Any board member comments? Commissioner Fatchella.
If we could go back to future meetings for a moment.
Sure. It's sort of
I
freestyle right now, so.
Just wanted to see if we had a tentative date for the next budget meeting.
Well, the workshop that I mentioned, we're gonna send out, Rachel will send out a thing to find out your calendars. Find the best date when the most number of people can attend.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was actually going to bring that up myself because the last workshop was held on a Thursday when St. Petersburg City Council Chair, Fig Sanders, and I both have city council meetings. And although I know that there's no one day of the week that works for everyone, I really would like to attend the next one. And April, even, I mean, March is at the end of this week. April's going to be here before we know it. We all work with very busy calendars. So I'd love for us to get some dates going sooner than later. And I'll just make a request that maybe next time it's not on a Thursday, just to create a little bit of fairness for everyone. Thank you.
It was a very successful budget meeting.
Yes, I was able to watch it later, so, yeah, it's good. So I did get caught up on everything, but I want to be there for the next one, and thank you for holding down the fort. I did have one announcement to make. I'm excited to report that I have been appointed to the National League of Cities Federal Advocacy Committee for Transportation and Infrastructure Services for this year. And so I'll be working on the national level with other cities around the country to really speak up and try to get some transportation initiatives and funding going. It's a great opportunity for me, and even though I'll be representing the city of St. Petersburg in that capacity, of course, anytime I'm working on transportation, there are positive effects and positive things I can bring back for PSTA, and also for Forward Pinellas, which I also serve on. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'll be in DC in a couple of weeks for the National League of Cities Congressional City Conference, where I do the committee meetings, and we'll be on the Hill for a while. So I look forward to sharing that experience and what I've learned when we convene then at the end of March. So I just wanted to share that. I'm really excited to be serving on that committee.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Did we have any other comments from the board? All right, our next meeting will be on March 27th at 9 a.m. Thanks, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.
Good week, Brian.
I know. You want to go back in the conference room?
Just did, I think.
I need a notary, so. Does anybody know of anything else?
We'll go back there.
You're trying to just, you don't have the opportunity to just talk. No. You know, and oh, that was good.
Okay, who do we see for signatures?
This guy right here.
I can't believe that Wick didn't find it.
Okay, gotcha.
So I guess that was.